Guys, today an analysis about gaming where I will compare him to Hu Tao for one, because it's cool, and secondarily because before he came out I made this claim about gaming where I considered him one of the best carries in the game when maximized, even including the 5-star carries. So we're going to put that to the test today. First of all, let's make one thing very clear. Unless your gaming is Constellation 6, he can compete with these very strong 5-star carries. He's still pretty good, like his damage per screenshot can really be impressive for a 4-star, but overall his consistency is just not there, both in terms of damage and in terms of actual gameplay really. Specifically, the Constellation 4 that decreases his energy requirements by quite a bit, and the Constellation 6 that increases the damage output of his elemental skill by a lot are pretty much requirements to put him in that competition. And in terms of the actual performance he has at Constellation 6, it's pretty great, but maybe not as great as I was expecting, probably. His best team is without a doubt the hyper vaporize team with Xianyun, Furina and Bennett. First of all, about how this team plays in practice. In pre-release I made the assumption that with Xianyun and Constellation 6 Bennett that gives Pyro Infusion to Gaming's normal attacks, you will be able to alternate normal plunges with elemental skill plunges with Gaming. At that time I considered it to be a quite useful option because you generally have to wait a couple seconds between Gaming's elemental skills because of the time you have to wait for the lion to run towards you, or if you want you can run towards the lion, but instead of just waiting you can use a normal plunge, and it sounded pretty great. But unfortunately, he has the same issue all the other pyro damage dealers have on this team with Furina, where the hydro application is just not strong enough to sustain that type of frequency with pyro plunges in terms of vaporize. So running towards the lion it is, I guess. Let me remind you that if you enjoy my channel and you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me notice your support. Typically, if you're very precise in your movements in running towards the lion after using an elemental skill, you will be able to use it again after 2 or 3 seconds, which is around 5 elemental skills per rotation, all vaped, and that's a lot of damage. That's not much worse than the alternative I proposed, really. The issue with this is that when you're facing a lot of opponents, finding the lion in all of the chaos can be a bit hard, and truthfully in those situations doing a normal plunge can be quite fine, because in these situations the hydro application becomes stronger thanks to Xianyun's swirls, so it's fine. But honestly, the gameplay aspect where you have to find the little lion in all of that mess is definitely something I like. I might be weird, but I like it. Anyway, the damage Gaming can deal on these teams is definitely on that tier where you would expect the top tier carries to be, because it's genuinely very impressive. Specifically, his elemental skill screenshot damage is nothing short of amazing, and it feels like you're throwing nukes every 2 or 3 seconds, and that's great. That's a great feeling. Alternatively, there are the variants with Kazuha or Sucrose on this same team, and they feel nice, especially in AoE with Kazuha, but you're definitely losing a lot in terms of Gaming damage, like the Gaming single target damage, because Xianyun is really magnifying that. Alternatively, there is the team with Rosaria and Kazuha, so a Melt team that feels pretty nice in terms of Gaming's personal damage, since Melt is a stronger reaction than Vaporize for him, so you're compensating for the loss of Furina and Xianyun that way. But there is an issue all of these teams have, which is you're playing Circle Impact all the time. I'll be very honest here. I don't like it when a character is tied to Bennett or characters like Bennett that restrict him to play within a small circle. I just don't like it that much. This is more so the case with characters like Gaming that deal a lot of damage very quickly so they can kill a wave pretty fast, and then you have to move out of the circle to catch the second wave, and you're practically losing damage that way. And also because he's a plunge damage dealer that can spread the enemies out of the circle. It's not the case in the current Abyss since all of the enemies are pretty much heavy, so that won't happen, but it might be a problem in the long term. And the issue here is that there is not a good replacement for Bennett on these teams, since you could, for example, play double Hydro with Shinchou Yanan, but since Gaming doesn't have a Pyro Infusion for the normal attacks, to trigger their burst effects you would have to use physical normal attacks with him, which doesn't sound great. Of course, it's not like it's that big of a problem because Bennett is a great character and having him on teams is always very nice. But if we're comparing Gaming to a character like Hu Tao, then it becomes a pretty noticeable flaw to me. A bit of background first. In a pre-release, I made the infamous comparison between a Constellation 1 Hu Tao played with double Hydro in Kazuha and a Constellation 6 Gaming played in his Hyper Vaporize team. Overall, their team damage looked pretty damn similar, but something I think some people missed is that I didn't mean to use this as a proof that a Constellation 6 Gaming was on the same level as a Constellation 1 Hu Tao. Rather, I meant to show that at least in theory, his damage could be very impressive. Moreover, some people also complained about me not picking the team with the highest DPS for the comparison for Hu Tao. For example, Hyper Hu Tao with Yelan, Bennett and Kazuha, or Double Hydro with Fiorina and Jin, something like that. And I didn't do that because generally Double Hydro with Kazuha is the team that feels the best to me for Hu Tao for general play, so I just picked this one. But one mistake I made for sure is that I didn't predict Hu Tao plunge will feel absolutely amazing. I believed it would be a pretty nice option, especially for Constellation 0 Hu Taos, but I didn't think it would be this good. The crux of it is the same as Gaming kinda, since you play Xianyun and Fiorina, but instead of Bennett you can play characters like Xinqiu or Yelan that fit much better with the Hu Tao than they do with Gaming. The combos you use are 1 or 2 normal attacks and a charge attack, then jump, then plunge. And the thing with Hu Tao is that she applies a lot of pyro in these sequences. But since you're using Xinqiu or Yelan as a second Hydro, then the Hydro application is much stronger than on Gaming teams and it feels much better. The combo I like the most for Hu Tao here is 1 normal attack, charge, jump and plunge because it just feels better to execute than 2 normal attacks, and for the most part all the hits are vaping, some charge attack like 1 or 2 could miss vape or 1 plunge could miss vape, but the damage is very high. The interesting aspect is that the damage is much higher than Constellation 0 Hu Tao combos without plunges and pretty much on the same level as Constellation 1 Hu Tao combos, so it's pretty revolutionary in a sense. And it's pretty intriguing because Hu Tao has always been this character where you go, oh, you need the Constellation 1 because she feels just awful to play a Constellation 0 because of the stamina and such. But adding the plunges to the mix really changes this idea of her, in my opinion, and it's really great. If I have to be honest, before Xianyun came out, I didn't feel like Fiorina was that much of an upgrade for Hu Tao. Like, sure, the team looked better in terms of team DPS, but I just preferred other Hu Tao teams in terms of utility and overall practicality. But now with Xianyun, I like the compositions with Fiorina the most. And honestly, it's not even about how much damage you do, but how you deal that damage, because Hu Tao was never weak in terms of dealing damage, of course, but since plunges are AoE attacks, they add a different dimension to Hu Tao's kit, and it feels great. And when it comes to the actual comparison with Gaming Constellation 6, so the point of this video, Hu Tao pretty much feels a less restricted Gaming, because the damage is there, but since you don't have Bennett on team, you have more mobility, so it's just less restricted. In terms of damage ceiling, they aren't too different, which is a great achievement for Gaming, but still I wouldn't quite put him on the same level as Hu Tao, probably slightly lower, especially because Hu Tao is much more versatile, since aside from this plunge niche, she has many more teams, while Gaming is kinda restricted because Xianyun is basically his Farazan, and without Bennett it doesn't feel that great, so in terms of options is more restricted. But regardless, I would definitely say Gaming is at that level where a Constellation 6 he can compete with great 5 stars, like he's better than Diluc in his role, like the plunge role. So he's great. Talking about Diluc, make sure to go check the guide I made the other day about him and Xianyun, and peace.